Namaste and hi friends, it's Parvati here with Visionary Veda, bringing you your Vedic Astrology New Moon Report for this February 11th, 2021. This is a very intense and very auspicious new moon, as it also marks the start of the Chinese New Year. That's right, we are heading into the year of the ox. In this report, I'm going to speak a little bit about the significations of this new moon, as well as how the Chinese Zodiac ties in with the Vedic Zodiac and what we have in store. So let's get started. Okay, so this new moon is the cherry on top of this huge planetary lineup we have going on in the sidereal sign of Capricorn. We have had Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn for a while now. We've had the Sun in Capricorn for a little bit over a month, or a little bit under a month. Venus also joined in Capricorn, as Mercury is retrograde in Capricorn, and we have Pluto as well on the cusp of Capricorn, just entering from its long sojourn in the sign of Sagittarius. Again, these reports are based on Vedic astrology, or ancient astrology of the Vedas, which come from India. So we use the sidereal zodiac, which is different to the tropical zodiac. Most people are used to using the Western system. So if you'd like a little bit more information as to how these planets affect you in your Vedic birth chart, please feel free to reach out to me for a consultation. My email is listed in the description below. So having said that, we now have 6 planets, including Pluto. If we were to include Pluto, it would be 7 planets in the sidereal sign of Capricorn. Okay, I made a slight mistake in my last report, I believe. I mentioned that this new moon is going to happen in the Nakshatra of Shravana. It is actually happening in Dhanishta along with the sun. So my apologies for that. Shravana Nakshatra is highly activated during this new moon because we still have Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus all in the Nakshatra of Shravana. So it's very, very activated. According to my last report, I spoke about the significance or the significations of Shravana, which includes listening to our intuition, as well as to our divine guidance. How does one listen? Well, by not speaking. And what's interesting about this new moon is that it's also known as the new moon, where one practices what's called mauna. Mauna actually means to not speak, to keep silence. So all of these significations are really showing us to tap into our wealth, Dhanishta, our abundance, Dhanishta. We need to take all of our faculties and quiet them down a bit, slow them down a bit, so we can really tap into our deep listening of our guidance. This new moon is happening along with the sun, like all new moons, in the Nakshatra of Dhanishta. Dhanishta is ruled by the planet Mars, which is in Kendra, or making a square in Western terms, from the sidereal sign of Aries. And he's very powerful in Aries because Mars rules Aries. Okay, it's sitting there with Uranus, and they're making a very strong square to this new moon. Now, Dhan, like Dhanvantri, Dhanishta, Dhanteras. Dhan means wealth or abundance, right? And Capricorn is an earth sign. So this new moon really lends to the possibility of generating earthly abundance. Okay, now how do we go about doing that? This is where Shravana comes in. We need to take time to listen to our guidance, to listen to our intuition, and to quiet all these crazy energies down a bit so we can be centered in our next step forward. All right. Shortly after, like a day or two after this new moon, 2 or 3 days, excuse me, after this new moon, the sun is going to move into Aquarius, and the moon, actually, right after, the moon is going to move into Aquarius, and the sun is going to move into Aquarius. And then in April, Jupiter is going to move into Aquarius as well. So we're going to see a big shift. So this new moon is very powerful to do any kind of ritual where one really uses their meditation skills, their listening skills, their tapping into their silence, using silence as a skill. As a matter of fact, I would recommend taking tomorrow as a day of silence on behalf of honoring this very powerful new moon. Rohini Nakshatra is also activated during this new moon because we have Rahu sitting in it, giving this new moon its 9th aspect. So in general, a lot of people have been feeling a little bit lost, for lack of a better word. A little lost, a little confused, a little unclear, a little anxious, uneasy. Why is that? Because we have all of these planets, right, packed into the sign of Capricorn. And just think about it. It's like all of these individuals that are all in the same room together. And each one of them has its own agenda. Now, each one of them, all of these planets that I just rattled off, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Venus, now the moon, and Pluto, they've all been going through what's known as combustion. That's when the sun's rays are blocking out the planet's light. As a matter of fact, in the night sky, all of these planets are invisible. The only planet that's visible right now in the night sky is the planet Mars, that is also aspecting, well, squaring, it's in Kendra to this planetary pile up in Capricorn. So it means that they're invisible, right? Their powers, their ability to take the sun's light and then cast their own, imbue it with their own energetic signatures, and then put it out onto us from the celestial skies, is rendered powerless, is rendered impotent. So all of these planets represent parts of us, okay? And all of these planets are burnt out. So you might be feeling a lot of exhaustion as well. Now, the good news about planets going combust is that, you know, it happens when the sun transits all of these planets, is that they are going through what is known as a purification process. So the sun comes with its intense energy, right? And it burns up, or it renders impotent the energies of these planets and their significations. Then once the sun goes through and passes through and the planets pop out the other side, they're considered to have gone through a purification process and now can lend their energy with even more vigor and more clarity because they have been purified. All right, so just hang in there. You know, if you're feeling extra tired, let yourself rest. If you're feeling extra confused, don't try and figure anything out right now. Give yourself the time. Drop into the silence. Drop into the deep listening. And pray and ask for guidance, okay? So now, Dhanishta Nakshatra, as I mentioned, is ruled by Mars. And it's also the indicator of wealth and abundance. Its symbol is symbolically, it is a Lord Shiva's drum, right? So it can also indicate keeping some sort of timing with life, being on time, having this divine sense of timing. It can also indicate a new form of music or a new genre of music. I think that this is a very exciting new moon. It's also the beginning of the Chinese New Year of the Ox. But the reason, let me just finish my thought on that. The reason it's so exciting is, if you've watched my other videos, you've known that this planetary pileup happened almost 60 years ago, in 1962. And it was the beginning of a great amount of change, an exciting, elevating, new discoveries were being made, new frontiers were being explored. The Beatles, right? This is when they first started to take off. Think about it, Dhanishta. This is according to one of my other astrologer friends, who mentioned in his report that this is when the Beatles found Ringo Starr, and they decided to be the group that we all know right now. And it's the drum, Dhanishta. Ringo was the drummer. So we might have new forms of music that's going to be universally loved by us all. There was the space race as well that was happening, right? The race to the moon. Now we have the race to Mars. There was also a lot of political tension, right? And Cuban Missile Crisis and all of that was happening around the time of JFK. So look, we're having a lot of political tension happening again. Also, in Myanmar, which was also used to be known as Burma, there was a big uprising back then in 1962, and there's an uprising happening again. So look, everything is cyclical, right? Everything what goes around comes around. The seasons, the earth, the planets, the atoms, everything is a cycle. So now we can look forward to some of those same themes that we had back in the early 60s. And as you guys know, it was a time of great change, a great innovation, and very exciting new ways of expansion and consciousness, and just a lot of good things that came out of that era. Of course, it doesn't mean to say it's not without its turmoil, because there was a lot of turmoil happening there politically as well. There was a lot of civil rights movements. There was the assassination of JFK. There was, the Cuban Missile Crisis, like I mentioned. So, everything has its light and its dark, but I feel really good about these upcoming times. And in April, so in a couple of months, we're going to have Jupiter moving into the sign of Aquarius. Yeah. And when that happens, I really feel like politically, the people are going to become empowered. Right now, during this new moon, there could be a feeling of like the establishment, the government versus democracy versus the people. Is the government really representing truly the wishes and the wants and the needs of the people? All of this stuff is up for our review right now. It's also just changing my train of thought right now, because I'm keeping an eye on the time. It is also Chinese New Year. Happy Chinese New Year, year of the ox. Now, how does this Chinese New Year tie into the zodiac? Well, it's tied into the cycle of Jupiter. As you know, that there's 12 planets in the Chinese zodiac, and it's a yearly zodiac. It corresponds to Jupiter, because as you know, Jupiter takes 12 years to traverse each sign. The first sign, the beginning of the 12-year cycle, is the year of the rat, which was last year, 2020. It's the beginning of a whole new cycle. So now we're in the second part. So the first part, the year of the rat last year, was when Jupiter was in the sign of Sagittarius. the sidereal sign of Sagittarius, okay? This matches up. It doesn't match up to the Western astrology. It matches up to the Vedic astrology, because all of these ancient astrology methods were all according to the same principles, okay, which was according to the moon. Anyway, so that was the beginning of a 12-year cycle. Now, the second part of that cycle is the year of the ox, or when Jupiter is in Capricorn. Now, the ox symbolizes hard work. The ox is also a very earthly creature, right? Capricorn, hard work, our karmas, our earthly abundance, okay? What do I mean by karma, right? Well, on one level, I mean you shall reap what you sow. What goes around comes around, right? So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. But it's also the work that we need to put into achieving our ideals. So last year showed us where we were at, and should have given us a glimpse into where we want to go, how we want to move forward. Now, the year of the ox is all about applying our hard work. Saturn in Capricorn, right? How do we get the job done? It's a Herculean task. But the year of the ox, Saturn in Capricorn, will keep us on task. There's a lot of big cycles that have started anew, right? The last time Saturn was in Capricorn was 30 years ago. The last time Saturn and Jupiter were in Capricorn was 60 years ago. The last time we had this planetary lineup was almost 60 years ago. The last time Rahu was in Rohini Nakshatra or in Taurus was 18 years ago. So we can look back at these cyclical themes to kind of get a flavor, to kind of get a foreshadowing of how things are going to be for this year moving forward. And this new moon that's happening is pivotal for these events, for the unfolding of these events, right? Everything happens in karmic cycles. So the last thing I wanted to mention before I close is, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I mentioned it in the beginning of this video or not, but the new moon is happening in Dhanishta. I think in my other report I mentioned it happening in Shravana. I think I did mention this. Now, Shravana, we have a lot of planets, and especially we have Saturn sitting there. Shravana is the nakshatra of the moon, right? That's why it's tied into listening and being quiet, so we can listen to our intuition, to our intuitive wisdom, which comes from our mental, emotional nature, right? The moon. We also have Rahu in Rohini Nakshatra. And Rohini Nakshatra is also ruled by the moon. So the moon is going to be very important in this year's activities, okay? So our minds are going to be key in how we're going to move forward and put our works to task, right? How are we going to carve our road forward? It's all going to be the result of how clear and stable, again, the year of the ox, Capricorn, Saturn, how stable, how practical, how clear our minds are. Rahu will make our minds kind of confused. Rahu might make us lust after and desire after material security, right? In Taurus. Also the bull, right? Also the sign of the bull. So interesting. Bull, ox, goat. And Saturn might make us feel a little bit heavy, a little bit isolated, as if we haven't been feeling so isolated as it is, right? But Saturn's been in Capricorn for over a year now. It entered Capricorn January 24th of last year. Okay, so it's very important for us to learn how to nourish our minds, how to take care of our minds so that our minds are healthy, so that we can make the right choices, and so that we can withstand any kind of adversity coming forward, right? These are going to be amazing times, and we have to have the mental stability and the keenness, the mental acumen, and the clarity to make the right choices moving forward. So that is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. I hope these reports are helpful for you and of benefit and bring you some clarity as to your situation. As always, please feel free to comment below. Please like, subscribe, and share, especially subscribe, because the more subscribers I have, the more YouTube will circulate my videos, and the more people can be benefited by this information. All right. So, my friends, happy new moon. It's a big chapter that we're all going to sit down and start writing. Make sure we're calm, cool, collected, and clear. Take some time to introspect and be silent. And as always, enjoy the life. All right. Until next time. Namaste. Thanks so much, and bye-bye.